Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast, your go-to resource for hidden growth opportunities throughout online business. We're your host. I'm Sarah.
Hey everyone, this is Brandon.
And thanks for joining us for our latest episode.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Today we are speaking with Gregory Elfrink, the Director of Marketing for us, Empire Flippers. And today Greg is going to discuss some of the things that he is most passionate about, such as how to use content to scale your own empire.
Yeah, it's so great to have Greg on talking about what he talks about best. He's going to be going over how you can use content to create a full-fledged media site, the roadmap and timeline for implementing a content strategy on your newly acquired business, and even how to connect with your audience so they buy from you forever.
Yeah, it's really exciting stuff, and we're happy to have you with us today. But we don't want to give away too much right from the start, so let's dig into the interview and see what Greg has to share. And then at the end of this episode, we'll go over some of the best listings on the Empire Flippers marketplace that highlight the growth opportunities you've learned here today. So let's get started.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Opportunity Podcast. Today our guest is Gregory Elfrink. He is the Director of Marketing here at Empire Flippers and has been working with Empire Flippers for over 4.5 years now. So thanks for coming on the call today, Greg. It's really nice having you here speaking with us.
Hey Brandon and Sarah, it's a pleasure to be here. Hopefully we'll be able to provide some value to our audience.
Yeah, definitely. Really excited to talk to you. We know you have, extensive knowledge in the content site space and, just online business in general. So yeah, we'll go ahead and dive into it. But first, before we get into the meat of the questions, how did you find your way into working with Empire Flippers?
Yeah, it's some of the audience might be familiar with my story. I actually wrote a blog post about this when I was trying to hire other content specialists to work for us long ago. But yeah, so I was originally in the oil field, and some people in our audience knows this answer. We actually have a blog post written about it that I wrote to get people excited back when we had the apprentice program to come work for us. But yeah, I was working in the oil field in Alaska. I hated it, absolutely hated it in every way. And I always knew about the internet marketing world, knew about this like kind of other lifestyle that was out there. Not many of my friends really believed me on that. But yeah, I was one of those guys that would buy all the courses, like, would you rather go to college or spend the $2,000 on this SEO course? Like, yes, SEO course all the way, right? So that's how I kind of got started. I did a lot of different things. I was building affiliate sites, trying to run my own agency. But when you're working 12, 18 hours a day, it's hard to get anything going, right? So eventually I kind of gave up on all of that. And to pay off my course debt, I started writing articles for SEOs for 1 cent per word. And eventually that kind of me giving up actually led to me getting even more determined to do it, because I started making about $1,000 a month from writing those articles for all these SEOs. And I still remember one of my clients, he found out I was working in the oil field. He's like, man, if I was you, I'd be so burned out writing these articles and working in the oil field. And I told him, like, man, I've been burned out for years. Doesn't mean you don't have to pay your bills, right? You thought it was funny. But anyhow, I had started building an affiliate site with the plans of selling it. And because I was so obsessed with the internet marketing world, I'd heard of this company called AdSense Flippers from the Warrior Forum way back in the day. So I started looking them up. They were rebranded to Empire Flippers. And I basically was like, I'm going to make this affiliate site if it kills me. I don't care how long it takes. I'm just going to make it happen. Then I got an email from them saying, hey, we're looking for a content marketing pro. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like me, but I'm going to apply for it anyways. I applied for a bunch of different marketing agencies, but since I don't have a college degree and Alaska, fair enough, is pretty behind the times when it comes to internet marketing, those agencies up there would even look at me. So I applied for this thinking like this will be an easy rejection letter. I'll keep continuing on with my affiliate site once they reject me. And turns out they didn't reject me. And next thing I knew, I flew out to Vietnam and began my long journey from an apprentice to where I am today.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really great story. And hearing, going from the roughneck, working in the oil field into, straight into, working on your laptop, I'm sure that was a huge change in just kind of your working lifestyle. And so what was it that you loved about, content or maybe even just digital marketing in general that got you into industry to begin with?
Well, it's kind of an artistic question. As you two both know, my artistic side, I view business and marketing as kind of like an art form. As a big fan of fiction and writing literature, marketing to me was like another form of art. And so I've always been fascinated by it, always been keen on it. And the power of what you can do with marketing and entrepreneurship is just, I just think it was amazing. It can change someone's life completely. It changed my life completely. It took a little bit much longer than I expected for it to happen, but it did end up changing my life. And I always believed that when I got into it. So that's what drew me in. Also, I love the nature of the psychology of it and what you're able to do. Like if you understand how good marketing works, you can make almost anything. As long as it's a good product, you can build almost anything you want, which I think is just awesome. As far as the content specifically, I've always been a very fast writer, so I kind of fell into content marketing. I love SEO because, in my heart, I'm actually a very lazy person. And when you do good with SEO, once you're ranked number one, you don't really have to do much outside of that. It's not like running a paid campaign where you have to monitor the campaign every day, right? So content to me just spoke to me the most out of anything. And I feel content, which we'll probably get into, really exists in every function of marketing. So I view it as the most core part of marketing.
Awesome. Well, I guess building off of that, understanding the power of marketing and knowing that you've probably got a few opinions on it, this is probably the most important question of the interview. Who is your favorite marketing team in the industry and why is it Empire Flippers?
You actually included the question. Good for you.
We don't have to. No, I'm kidding.
For our listeners out there, I told Sarah to include this question to impart upon you on how great our marketing team is when you decide to sell your business with us.
No, I'm kidding.
I think we are the best marketers in the industry. I mean, we definitely have the most fun of anyone in the industry, I think.
For sure. And I would say that's in large part because we have Greg leading the squad and making sure fun actually happens. So, no, I wanted to get on the subject of just Empire Flippers in general. I mean, I understand you had this beautiful build up into content and you're seeing how powerful it can be. But I wanted to figure out basically Empire Flippers' relationship to content and maybe figure out where we are now. So could you walk me through just what that relationship looks like and how has our relationship to content kind of changed over the years and how is it growing and changing even right now?
Sure. So how we started the company, as you two know, probably some of the audience members probably know, back when we were just AdSense flippers selling sites that we were building ourselves, we blogged about the journey, right? Back then, we were more of a blog that happened to have a marketplace versus now over time, we've become more of a marketplace that happens to have a blog, right? People were coming to us with reading our content back then. And then eventually they were like, hey, I would like you to sell my site because I know you have an audience. So content was really how we started building our audience. And over time, we just kept doing that over and over. By the time I came around is probably when the blog became the most consistent. I was doing one blog post per week and doing all the outreach to do guest posts on other people's blogs as well. I did a bunch. I have like over 100 guest posts at this point that I've done. But yeah, so over time, what has happened, our content game has matured and grown from, really just blogging about like the life of a digital nomad in some sense to now we are serving a bunch of different markets from that digital nomad where we began to start talking to private equity, to start talking to 7-figure sellers, all sorts of different types of people now we serve with our content, which is part of where I see us going in the future where, an entrepreneur doesn't just come to us to help them buy or sell a digital asset, but really we're there for their entire journey. And that's what I want our content to be able to do for them. As far as like tactics go, we've definitely gotten much, much better when it comes to SEO, which is, fantastic. But I think we're also getting much better in producing like, unique data-driven content too. Our industry, for example, huge success is still the only report in the industry that actually gives you the average days on market and actual sales price. So I see like that transformation is basically just keeps building on itself where we always start with really good content and then we ask ourselves, how can we get this in front of more and more people to serve them with whatever problems they have? How can we solve those problems? That is always the question we're asking ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. It's the question of how are we going to solve these problems and how are we catering to people throughout their entire journey, like you were mentioning? I know that's super applicable to other business owners out there who are trying to realize that content can be a way bigger part of the puzzle than just the thing that they put out there to get attention. It really is part of their brand identity. It is part of certainly their growth strategy. I mean, on that subject, I'd like to know, like, if you could sort of paint a picture for the audience, what are the growth strategies that you're trying to implement now? And what are the things that maybe that we're doing that other business owners could actually be learning from?
Sure. So one of the big things, as you two know, is we are heavily focused on SEO, and that's always been kind of the case, but now we've become a lot more refined. So we've been taking what we knew is a good keyword or whatever, but now we're adding more processes to it, like on-page optimization. We finally started building our own backlinks, which is kind of cool. We've never actually done that before, outside of like traditional guest posting, that is. So those are some of the things we're focused on. But the other thing that we're focused on in terms of content, and this is something I feel the entire audience can use other than me just saying go and do SEO, is doing data-driven content. So even if you're an affiliate site owner, you can do this. So the industry report is like our crown achievement on this, right? But there's other data-driven pieces we've done. Like Brandon has published several different ROI studies. Did these buyers make money after they bought this business from us, right? And those were fascinating studies that we did. And that's real data that we were able to collect from our audience. So the more you can create that unique data-driven content, the more powerful your brand's going to become. And if you're an affiliate site owner, you might be thinking like, I have no data, but that's not exactly true, because you can go out and create the data, right? If you were, doing a dog training site and you go and interviewed 1,000 different dog trainers in a survey to try to get some kind of like metrics or numbers, part of a study, you now have data. And yes, that takes forever to do. I mean, as you two both know, writing these data-driven pieces aren't exactly easy. They're very time consuming, but the beautiful thing is once you have written it once and you have that data, you can use that data throughout the rest of your content. That constantly makes you more of an authority. And that works whether you're an e-commerce store owner, SaaS, or even an affiliate site owner.
Yeah, that's very valuable information, Greg. And so on the flip side of that, what do you feel that most people that are in the content site space, or maybe even just generating content to gain revenue from, what do you feel most of them are missing out on, or maybe they're getting wrong most of the time within their content marketing strategy?
Yeah, that's a very fair question, because I see this quite often, especially with SEO-driven marketers, but this really exists with all marketers, and that is just being like a one-trick pony, right? Like only driving SEO traffic or only driving Facebook ad traffic. You're setting yourself up for failure. Like maybe not now, maybe not even the next 6 months, but eventually there's going to be a failure if you only focus on that. So the thing that I see, and this is especially true to a lot of the entrepreneurs on our marketplace, that they're not taking the bigger picture. They're not thinking about the bigger picture. An example of this would be, I was just talking to an affiliate site owner. He makes between 15, 20 grand a month from his site. And he has an email list, which is fantastic, but has never emailed the list, which makes it very not fantastic, right? Like he is actually hurting the valuation of his business by not sending out that email, because he would be better served by just sending them to a page where they can go and buy something from him instead. So it's all about thinking, what is the big picture here? So in this example, this SEO site that is already collecting emails should actually be using their email list. And if you start thinking more holistically about your brand that you're building, even as an affiliate site, you will be better served, because now that person can think of, okay, say I have 12 different roundup reviews that I want to get out there. I can put those roundup reviews into my email list, and then they could look at that email list and say, like, how much money is this making? Because I set up special tracking links and all that kind of stuff. And they can say, okay, when they go through this autoresponder, it makes me, $200, say, at the end in affiliate commissions. Now they're not just restricted to SEO, because if they know that funnel generates on average $200 per subscriber, they can go and spend upwards of, say, $150 on paid media to get those people to subscribe to that email list and turbocharge that email list, turbocharge that entire brand, that entire website. But most people do not think like that. They just think, I need to publish 100 articles. I need to get these 100 articles ranked. Once they're ranked, I'm going to go build another site, publish 100 articles, get them ranked, and repeat over and over again without ever thinking about the bigger picture.
Can I make a real quick note on that? Maybe just a question for you, Greg. You're talking about somebody who might have an email list, but they're not using it. And, people have constructed in their minds that really content is just about putting out 100 articles and that's it. I don't know. I'm kind of guessing that someone who might have an email list or, they have a bit of content, like there's a certain degree of fear in actually sort of taking the risk, sending the email, expanding outside of article writing. I'm kind of wondering if that's something that you've run across in your career as someone who's deep into content marketing, and how would you address that fear in people that just don't know how to take the leap and to sort of get into the game?
Yeah, that actually does exist, especially with email. So I have talked to several internet marketers, buddies of mine, and yeah, they just don't send the email because they're afraid. They're afraid of the lists that they generated, which is, to me, is interesting. I think that's just something you have to overcome. Yeah, I think a lot of people, they're afraid they're going to annoy the subscriber, right, by emailing them. And that might be true. You might annoy them, but that's okay. It's just like anything else. If you're doing SEO traffic, you say you get 1,000 visitors, and out of that 1,000, maybe 10, 20 people buy something. Out of that 1,000, you might have annoyed 50 or 60 people with your article too. You just don't know it, right? Because there's no reply. So there's that. I would just overcome that fear. Don't be afraid of annoying your subscribers. Know that the very fact that they did subscribe shows that they want you to send them something, right? Otherwise, they would not have subscribed in the first place. Now, you might send them too much email, which will eventually annoy them and get them to unsubscribe. But I actually think sending too much email is probably better than sending too little, because you're going to galvanize that list to be a lot more engaged with who you are and what your brand is.
Yeah, and kind of like you were saying earlier, it's about sort of collecting data to be able to work with. You're not really going to be able to collect data unless you're actually sending out the emails, seeing what converts, seeing who's buying, et cetera. So yeah, I think it does come down to it's the risk taking that's just sort of necessary being in the business world, isn't it? You're just going to have to try something. One
more thing on that too. Speaking of the fear of trying something new, and this can extend beyond email marketing, fear of Facebook ads or whatever. Whoever's listening out there, if you're trying, it's your first time ever doing email marketing or paid media or whatever new marketing strategy you're going to do, you will probably lose money doing it because you haven't learned how to do it yet. It's just like when you learned SEO or whatever your core competency is, you're going to break your leg a few times and it's going to suck and it's going to be frustrating, but you keep doing it and you become better and better, and soon you're playing like a pro and you're having a blast. So it's just all about pushing through to get to that level of skill, push through the frustration and test and look at the data and see what the data is saying and just keep making action towards it.
Yeah, no, definitely a solid point. And, always putting action forward and moving forward is always going to give you, the best possible outcome. And funny that you mentioned, some of the key points and key takeaways that you've gained over the years. And I know Sarah and I have both listened to a lot of your, talks and, even with your Chiang Mai SEO conference talk as well, very, solid information about content sites and scaling a content site. Also in some of your talks, Greg, I noticed that you speak about why content sites really do offer one of the best types of monetizations, available in the online acquisition space to scale. Why do you feel that way? Maybe for our listeners that might not have, heard any of your talks at some of these conferences.
Yeah, so I make it no secret, the content sites are my favorite business model. And it comes down to, again, seeing the bigger picture of asking, what does this business model actually do? If you talk to most affiliate site owners, they're going to say, well, it acts as someone to click, because I do the SEO, they get to the site, they click my affiliate link, they buy or they don't, and that's the business. And they're not wrong when they say that, but they're not thinking of what the actual essentials of this business is. The essential thing of this business is you're creating what is called an addressable audience. You get that traffic to come to your content, they interact, and then they buy something. You can also capture that addressable audience to actually make a reusable addressable audience through, say, an email list. Over time, as you build up a content site into what I like to call a media company versus a brochure site, and that analogy is basically like if you're building an affiliate site, maybe it's called bestredblenders.com, right? This is what I would call a brochure site. So you're walking down the street, I'm walking down the street. I have this brochure about the best red blenders under $50, and I give it to you. There's only two things you might do with that. One, you read the brochure and you buy the red blender, then you throw it away. Or two, don't even read it, you just throw the brochure away. But either way, you're throwing the brochure away. And when I'm talking about scaling a content site, I'm talking about moving into more of a media company, like a magazine, where I hand you a magazine. Maybe it's about kitchen products, kitchen recipes, kitchen tips, all this kind of stuff that is inherent value. You keep coming back to it, you keep interacting with the content, and I get to sell you items or display ads over and over and over again because I understand what the business model actually is, which is about becoming collecting and building and nurturing an addressable audience. So one of the things I say is if you are able to build, say, a $4 million content site, it is very, very easy to take that brand and build a $2 million e-commerce store on the back of that content site. And your competitors, it will be so difficult for them to compete against you because you have so much traffic. Your addressable audience is huge. Even if you're doing like, say, Amazon FBA, you put your blender up on Amazon and you email your list of tens of thousands of people that trust you, that have built this relationship with you. They have this brand identity that they share with your content. You're going to crush it, right? You're going to buy your blender. And then Amazon's going to be like, wow, people love this thing. And then they're going to start promoting it for you on their marketplace and you're ranked number one. And then it's not that difficult to see for someone to just click, who is this product by? And then they see all the other e-com products of yours, which again are getting the boosted ranks from your content business. So if you view it as the essential business model of building an addressable audience and you think long term, I think content sites, some of the best scale in the world. You can start any other monetization under the sun with content sites. I've seen SaaS, software as a service, begin as a content site that eventually developed its own SaaS for its audience.
Yeah, no, definitely a solid point on that. And, seeing the bigger picture for people that might not be familiar with scaling a content site, or maybe they might have that same mentality where, I just produce content, publish 100 articles a month and I'll rank, and they don't really get grasp of the bigger picture. So putting yourself in the shoes of a content-based business buyer, walk us through the steps, Greg, that you would take once you've acquired the business, you have full ownership over it, and kind of what your marketing strategy would be after that.
Yeah, so it depends on the site, but in general, I would follow more or less what I'm about to say. So the first thing I would look for, from everyone's personal criteria is going to be different. So don't take this as like the holy grail. You must do what Greg says. This is just like what I would do. So I would look at a site that preferably only has affiliate links on it. No display advertising or anything like that, just affiliate links, preferably Amazon affiliate links, actually, if I can find that. And I would want a domain that is a good brand. So if I'm debating between buying Best Red Blenders or Kitchen Hero, even if Kitchen Hero makes a little bit less money, that's probably the one I'm going to buy because there's a better brand potential instead of just the Blender site, right? So I'd buy a good brandable domain. Once I have it, the very first thing I would do is I would go to an agency because I don't want to do it myself. I would go to an agency to do CRO, conversion rate optimization, on the top 10 pages that are making money or so. I want that set up almost immediately. At the same time, I will be immediately going to a service like Ezoic or AdThrive or Mediavine to set up display ads. And those two things alone might increase my net profit by 20 to 40% once it's all set up. I've seen just adding display ads to an affiliate site, I've seen a 10% lift in net profit. I've certainly seen over 50% gains from CRO on a few affiliate sites. Usually it's not that high, but you can often get 10 to 20% just because most site builders, they're not going to be winning any design awards, which should be an inspiring thing for our audience, by the way. If you're concerned that your affiliate site doesn't look good and you think you can't make money, don't worry. There's a lot of ugly, profitable affiliate sites out there. It's not a thing you really need to worry about till later on in the journey. But when you're buying a site, that should be one of the first things you do because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there. So the next thing I would do is I would load up to Ahrefs. By the way, all of this is in like the first week that I would try to get done, including this part, which is go into Ahrefs and just get a ton of keywords related to the site. So let's say I bought Kitchen Hero and they were only talking about blenders because they kept it focused on just blenders. Now I want to look into, okay, well, blenders is all covered. What's another kitchen product I can sell? What about toast maker or coffee maker? So I would start researching hundreds of keywords, probably thousands of keywords, and then I would start organizing them into topic clusters. At the same time, I would start using a service like clearscope.io or Surfer SEO and have someone go through there, whether it's me or someone I'm using, to go and optimize all the existing content. So between those two last steps would be definitely the most brutal steps of the process. Those two, like the timeline there, so like throwing the display ads, doing the CRO would be like week 1, I'm doing the keyword research. Then week 2, it would be organizing all the keywords I have into topic clusters, into articles and all that stuff. Week 3, I'd be sending those all out to a content agency I trust to write all the content. Hopefully they can scale up to 50, 100 articles at a batch or more, because I want to get as much content as possible. So during that week 4 or so, I'm optimizing all the old content. As I get the new content coming in, I should know what my CRO experiment has yielded me, as well as the display ads, because now I'm like a month into the site. And then I would do a CRO on any of the other relevant pages, if are relevant pages, while at the same time uploading all the content I get from my agency at once. And so that new content can start ranking for all the keywords, because I have a strong domain if I'm buying a site, right? So these are the first phases of what I would do. All of this would be done more or less, ideally, in less than 2 months of ownership. And that should see a fairly good increase of net profit over time, especially as this new articles start ranking and the optimized ones start going to the first page of Google. At this point, like, it really depends on where you want to do. I think everyone buys a content site should do what I just described there. But after that point, you can either sit on the cash flow and flip the website for more in like, say, 6 to 8 months, or you can start taking the next steps to become that media company. And the next logical step there would be starting with an email list.
Awesome. All right. I mean, you've pretty much set out the game plan. I think everyone can become millionaires in content now, right? Because we're all doing it.
Go buy some content sites from us, everyone.
Go buy some content. Oh, yeah. Put my name on the business too. I'll tell you where my bank account is. And no, I'm just kidding. Well, so I was going to ask you what the outcome of this sort of game plan is, but I think you spelled it out. It sounds like, it could be 40% growth. It could be that you start ranking. And I like that you kind of tie it up that it's not just about this sort of immediate watching the numbers rise. It's about building a brand for the future and something to build off and to live off. So yeah, I think you've kind of given us pretty good perspective there. I know you did kind of point to lowest hanging fruit, and I know you talked about it in some sense, but I do want to sort of really dig in on that. One thing that I would love listeners of this podcast to walk away with from every episode is knowing exactly where opportunities lie for them in online business, and especially if it's like a low hanging fruit and an easy win. So can you just walk me through that a bit? What do you think are like the easiest wins for scaling your business through content? Even something for somebody who's new or afraid or a little bit skeptical about the power of content. Basically, what advice would you be giving to them?
Yeah, so if you're buying like an affiliate site, you should basically do what I just mentioned. CRO for sure is just the first thing. If you're building just a content team in general, like say you're running a SaaS, right? What I would recommend there is have 2 strategies. You have your content strategy, and then you have like a fast strategy, because content takes time. If you're just starting out, if you don't have a good domain, it can take upwards of 6 to 8 months for a good campaign to really start bearing fruit. But what you can do with content right away, and this is something that's very common, or at least it should be for SaaS owners to do, is to make a list of your dream 100 clients. So this is a very good strategy. So basically you find out who is my ideal clients, and write down a list of 100 of them, and then you want to email them all. But before you email them all, you should already be producing content around what kind of questions and problems that they have, so you can solve that. So you email them saying, hey, I have this software that does XYZ. I'd love to get your feedback. We're also publishing a lot of articles. We just did one on this and another one on that. Happy to send you the links if you'd like to read them. And so what that does there, it does a few things for you right away. First off, you can get feedback from your target audience right away from that cold email who says, I would absolutely use this, or I want to use this because of X, Y, and Z. And because you approach it to them as an ask where you're not selling to them, they're usually a lot more open to give you feedback and help you out. The other thing, by saying that you have this content, and especially if you did your target market research right, those 2 pieces or 1 piece of content should be about their problems that that they're having. So the fact you already wrote that, they are probably very interested already in reading it, right? So they're like, yes, I'll give you feedback. Please send me those blog posts. I've done this with a few different blog posts of ours that I wanted to promote. And it works out well. People, like, if you did your target market research, there's no reason why you can't make content work for you using what I call the softer powers there faster for you. But yeah, those are some of the like quick wins. And just to give like the audience another thing, a reference on the power of content is years ago, I wrote a little, I think it was like a 1,200 word article, which is very short for me, as you two know, but it was about winning the wire race, right? And that little 1,200 word piece of content led to millions of dollars of credit on file for the company. And it's just simple. No one is Googling this, right? No one's Googling how to win the wire race, but our audience, they understood the nomenclature, what we're talking about. So sometimes it's okay to write content that is not SEO driven. And I think that's an area a lot of other people forget. They think everything has to be SEO driven, when in fact content serves as both your top of your funnel, which would be like the SEO traffic, as well as the middle and the bottom of your funnel.
That's such a good point. I think there's a lot of people that want to apply the science to content. And this is something that we've, talked about before, where you can't forget that there's a bit of an art to content marketing as well. And I think that art comes with anticipating your audience's needs in a way that doesn't show up in keyword research or SEO. Sometimes you just kind of have to know. Sometimes it's that connection with your audience. It could lead to millions of dollars, I guess, like it did for us.
100%. And if the audience doesn't know where to begin on that, like, hey, this sounds really cool, but I don't know how to do any of this, they could go to like Reddit or Quora, look up your niche, look up, like, say you're doing the blender thing, right? You can probably find some kitchen related niches, maybe even blender related subreddits on Reddit, and see what like the post titles are. Those are usually questions or often of interest to that community. And that could be a great place for you to start mining those answers. I know local marketing agencies, they do this all the time. So say that they had their target market were like chiropractors or something, right? They would go onto Quora and they would find all the questions that people were asking about chiropractors, like, oh, are they real? Will this actually help my back? Or I'm concerned about X, and then they would write up a bunch of articles and they would answer these questions and they give it as a lead magnet to their chiropractor prospects. They say, hey, you probably have encountered these questions. Here's our lead magnet for you that you can use to convert those prospective people into patients. By the way, we can run your Facebook ads and help get this into the hands of your local market. So that's another example of content. Like, that is a paid strategy using content right there.
Well, and so I have this next question for you, and I don't want to make you repeat too much of what you just said. I know there's going to be a relationship between the two. We've already talked about like some easy wins. You've walked us through that sort of guide, but I want to take a step back and think a little bit high level. And I want to think about just sort of the upper echelon of content marketing. What would you say it takes to really crush it when it comes to scaling your business through content? And maybe if we're taking a step back, maybe it's storytelling, maybe it's all branding, maybe it's something deeper that I don't realize. But yeah, I'm just kind of wondering if you have like a viewpoint on that.
I mean, you kind of touched on it there. It comes into storytelling, but there's like caveats there, right? If you're telling a story and you're in a room telling the story and there's no one in that room, it doesn't matter how good the story is. So you need to have a way to get into the rooms where people are. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. There's SEO, right? So in that case, you're telling a story that needs to meet Google's search intent, or maybe you're telling a story on a place like Medium where you need to, get their algorithm working for you or YouTube's algorithm for you. Wherever you decide to tell the story, you need to understand the rules of that room. So you can reach the people that are in that room and you're not just, silently shouting to everyone and everyone's thinking, who's this crazy person that I can't hear, right? So you need to know, how do you reach to those people in the room? How does the room work? But once they start hearing your story, that's when the storytelling really actually comes into play. And one of the most important thing is don't waste the reader or the viewer's time. You should be extremely thorough. You should tell them what they're going to get. You should relate to the problem of how they probably got there. So in terms of SEO, I just did a video for YouTube on what is e-commerce. And in the video, I even joked about it. Like, if you're on this video, you probably typed into YouTube, what is e-commerce? Hopefully I came up first because that's what I was gunning for here. So you're probably wondering what the hell this is, right? So I go in and explain it to them. So you should always tell them upfront what they're going to get so they don't feel like they're wasting any time. But you should be very thorough too, to where by the time they leave that article, they know more about how to solve that problem or how to do something than like 99% of the world would. If you just ask someone on the street, they have no idea what you're talking about. But this guy's not an expert because they read your blog post or watched your video. So you always want to not waste their time and make sure they walk away feeling like they've become better for the experience.
Yeah, no, that's a very solid point that you make, Greg. And I think the term that a lot of, coming from an SEO background myself, a lot of terms that SEOs use is, serving up the user's intent, right? So you want to write content, write articles that serve or searchers' intent. And on that subject as well, these are a few software that, I've noticed coming into the game as far as making it easier for SEOs to really drive home a process in their content marketing. You had mentioned earlier within the guide on what you would do to grow and scale a SaaS business. You had mentioned Surfer SEO and ClearScope. So similar to that aspect with software as a service emerging to help content creators and content marketers, what do you feel are some of the emerging opportunities or trends that are going on now in 2020 to help these people, better their process for their content creation?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think in a lot of ways, it stayed the same. Like there's always more tools, right? And I joke often, I think this is especially true in the SEO space, is the more you learn about SEO, the harder it feels. You're just like, oh, now I have to worry about anchor text ratio and the outbound links, these OBLs, like, all these things like Screaming Frog. You two just went through Screaming Frog. I'm sure it looks complicated to you too.
Almost the moth and the light syndrome, right? You keep chasing the next light. That's the brightest, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like, there's always going to be new tools. The most important thing a content marketer can do is don't get distracted by those tools. Use them when they make sense and always hone the core of your skill. What is the room I'm in and how do I tell a good story to that room? So the rules of the room and how do I tell that story? Those are the two most important things because everything else around those two pillars, they're always changing. They're always in flux. So my tools I use change by the day. Hrefs is a consistent one. ClearScope is a new one we're adding. As far as other things that people can do with repurposing content, is absolutely fantastic. We haven't cracked it ourselves yet, like not as well as I would like, as you guys know, but I think we're getting closer to that. And repurposing data-driven content especially is extremely powerful because you spend all that time developing that data. Why not use it in other places? So all of that kind of stuff, I think, is very, very powerful for someone. But yeah, like I said, the tools, they change so often. The most important thing is focusing on the core.
Yeah, I like that take of, what it is you can be doing right now this year, 2020. I know 2020's been a pretty unpredictable time. Just really never know what's going to happen
Best
next.
year ever.
Yeah, it's been a time. And that's the thing. Like when I ask you a question about the future, I feel like, that sort of question takes like
in 2 more months from now.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's just like, man, can I ask about the future? But you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. So if you can, what do you think the future of content creation or content marketing might look like?
Yeah, I think it will be somewhat similar to what it is now. I think video in particular, and this is like, I feel like I'm beating an old drum at this point by saying it because so many people are saying it, but video in particular is extremely powerful. And I think it's underutilized. I think there's a podcast renaissance happening right now. People are getting really into the podcast, including us. This is our new one. I hope the audience is going to leave a 5-star review on it. That's my hidden content CTA right there. Leave a 5-star review on this, please. My teammates, Brennan and Sarah, would really appreciate it. But yeah, I think,
directly from our boss's mouth.
So I think podcast, video, and just multimedia, which goes back to the repurposing, is very important. A lot of content people, it's okay to start off with just say a blog, if that's your strong suit, but you should look to get into other mediums because if you answer every single question of your target market, but it's all answered in just a blog format, you're missing out on the lion's share of your clients. And that's the same goes for if you're just doing video or if you're just doing a podcast like audio medium, because everyone learns differently. So you want to be able to, attract people who are those visual people who need to watch a video or the audio people that love podcasts or the readers, right? So I think it's really good to create content in every medium. And we're now starting to do that as well. So.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we all have the tools now to figure out how to take the world by storm with our amazing content game. And now the world knows what to expect. Empire Flippers is about to be everywhere. Yeah, I think that we've basically run through a lot of their points. You've done an amazing job as usual, giving us some really valuable insight. Was there anything else that maybe we, missed along the way? Anything else you're just burning to share with the audience?
Nothing much else. I think, as we mentioned, 2020 is quite an unpredictable year. We're having a pretty good quarter in Q3 and we had a amazing according to Q2, but I know that's not the same for a lot of business owners out there right now. And I just want to say, like, these things hit the economy and the earth now and again, right? It's not like it's never happened before. It'll happen again. When things like this happen, it can feel very challenging, but there's always opportunity in these times. So just be persistent, get up your cash flow. I think cash flow is the most important thing if you're an entrepreneur right now, as well as your liquidity and having those kind of to be able to deploy when you do see opportunities. And if you want to deploy that capital into digital assets or making an exit, we obviously can definitely coach you if you leave a 5-star review on this podcast. Otherwise, we will not coach you. So
The only caveat.
this is part of Brandon Stair's KPI for my team, so don't tell them.
I can't wait to run that by our exit planning strategy team. Hey, by the way, if they didn't already
New
leave a
KPI.
5-star review, they can't be a part of your process. That's going to go over really well.
Yeah, Greg said I had to call you, otherwise Brandon Stair could get in trouble. It's the most powerful CTA on this podcast right here.
Amazing. Well, I guess, we can sign off there then, because there's no more powerful CTA than that. Definitely appreciate having you come on, Greg. It's been super fun as always. And yeah, looking forward to building out some great content together and seeing what our audience is going to do as well.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey everyone, as promised, now that we've wrapped up an episode and learned a little bit more about creating a content empire, we wanted to connect you with some of our best listings in the monetized content space. So first we have listing 47581. This listing is an info product, affiliate, Amazon Associates, advertising, and subscription business created in September 2014 in the news and education niche. The reason that I wanted to bring up this listing is just a powerful example of what a content site turned media company looks like. It provides excellent, long-lasting value to its audience, and it's just got such a well-developed audience. So just to bring that to life, first, it's got a massive email list, an email list of 57,688 subscribers. And it's already got amazing funnels in place, making it super easy should a buyer want to walk in to this business. It's done deal. They don't even have to worry about trying to connect with new people because it's already set in place. So that's pretty cool. It's also got amazing diversification. So info product, affiliate, Amazon Associates, advertising, and subscription business. You're not really worried about one of your monetizations tanking. You've got a good moat, as we like to say at Empire Flippers. It extends beyond just content. It adds a lot of value to readers by offering courses being one of the main drivers of income for the business. So that's pretty cool. I think a lot of businesses try to add courses, but can't quite figure out how to do it successfully. And this business has already developed that foundation. It's got a strong team. Most of them are happy to stay on with the buyer. And a really cool thing is that the seller mentioned that they haven't been focused on running paid ads or doing SEO or link building. So that means that if a buyer came in with an SEO background or wanted to partner with an SEO, they could really run away with that opportunity. They could come in, implement the SEO that is needed to take the business to new areas, and I think just really knock it out of the park. It's already a household name in its niche, which I think is really interesting. So it wouldn't be necessary for a buyer to come in and have to reinvent anything. It's already well established. So this one in particular has been one of my favorite businesses to look at, and I really think that it just does a great job of being an amazing media company example.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. And one thing I've noticed with this listing as well is, as you had mentioned before, is the diversification in the monetizations for this asset. It's really good to see, and it's awesome to see now, even more so in our marketplace, diversified income streams. This actually reminds me of another listing, 48230, which has taken a similar approach. It is a display advertising info product, Amazon Associates, and digital product business in the children's niche. And what's really interesting about this listing in particular is not only does it have a diversified monetization that it's using to generate income, but it has great potential as well on social media with a Pinterest account with over 142,000 followers. And then on top of that, you have an email list included with over 45,000 subscribers. So what's really great is not only are you diversifying your income streams, but you just have this massive social media presence that really offers a great potential to scale this business further and pick up where the seller left off. This WordPress site features informational posts, printables, and lesson plans for children. So that right there is untapped potential that you could expand and target other keywords or maybe even reach out and cover other content to captivate your audience even further. The site has a good amount of printables and downloadable content already created, so it wouldn't take much effort on a potential investor to come in, take over this asset, and really grow it to its full potential without having to put in that initial work, similar with the listing that Sarah had mentioned as well.
Yeah, I think the printables, it's such a great example of creating long-term value and creating customers or reader base that want to stick with you forever. I think both sites kind of go and meet their audience's needs in different ways. Like Greg was saying, it's not just about creating content. You really need to cater to people's different learning preferences. So whether that's video or courses, written content, these sites are actually making it happen. And the one that you've just mentioned, Brandon, listing 48230, the fact that it's doing so well on Pinterest is such a good sign. Pinterest is already an amazing driver for content sites. Some content sites rely on Pinterest to drive more traffic than even organic traffic does. So the fact that this has 142,000 followers, something that most content sites can only dream of, I just think is an amazing foundation and indicator that this site's really going places. So yeah, I think both of them are incredible examples of some of the things that we dug into with Greg today.
Yep, absolutely right. And I couldn't agree with you more, Sarah. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of the Opportunity Podcast.
Yeah, we hope you've gained some valuable insight to the opportunities digital acquisitions offer. Click the link in the description or visit empireflippers.com/marketplace to learn more about these businesses or other listings currently live on our platform.
That's right. And if you also enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a comment and subscribe to this channel for more great content that will be released very soon.
Until next time, we're your hosts. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Brandon.
And thanks for tuning into the Opportunity Podcast.